morning.
Good morning, students. We were doing the story of Gorilla and the Gesture. We have to start from page 78. On the last turn, we came to know that Npongo, that is the baby gorilla, he finally entered the narrator's life, right? He was finally able to acquire Npongo for how much money? Who will tell me? What was the price that he had to pay? Yes, Zubia.
Ma'am, 1,200 pounds.
Yes, for 1,200 pounds. And how did he arrange for that amount of money, for the amount of money which he wanted? By what means was he able to acquire? Yes, Tanisha.
Ma'am, he arranged for the money from the other sources, that is from the rich people who were living in the island, and the major portion of the money he arranged from major donors.
Yes, very good. Thank you. So now we proceed further. When we landed at the airport, I took Npongo out of his crate and we drove to the zoo with him sitting on my lap. So they finally reached, and Npongo, as we know that he was in a container, right, packed in a container. So he was taken out of the container, and though he didn't like being packed in a container, that crate, and so he was taken out. And then he covered the rest of his journey, that is from the airport to the zoo, while sitting on the narrator's lap, taking a great interest in the cows we passed, and occasionally turning around so that he could peer up into my face. So he was sitting on the narrator's lap, and quite often he used to turn around and look at the narrator's face. Peer up means to look very carefully, with a lot of interest, with a lot of attention. So that is peering. So he once in a while he used to turn around and look at the narrator's face. When we arrived, I carried him up to our flat, for his cage was not yet quite ready, and I had decided that he would have to spend a couple of days in our guest room. He had ordered for the cage for Npongo, but it was not ready at the time, and so the narrator decided that he will stay with him in his house, in his guest room. His grave, courteous manners. Okay. So the narrator decided that he's going to stay with him in his house, in his guest room. His grave, courteous manners and his rather sad expression immediately won over both Jackie and my mother. So though in the beginning we know how Jackie felt, she was not very happy with this idea of having a gorilla in the house. But with his manners, with his behavior, very soon Npongo won the hearts of all the people around him, including Jackie, that is the narrator's wife, and his mother. And before long, he was lolling back on the sofa while they plied him with delicacy. So very soon what happened, he was relaxing himself, right? Sitting in a very loose, relaxed manner on the sofa, and all these people in the house, what were they doing? They were supplying him. Supply means to supply him with delicacies, with all the different types of eatables, right? And the staff came upstairs. So they supplied him with delicacies, and the staff came upstairs one by one to pay homage to him. To pay homage to him means, here to pay respect to him means they wanted to see him, they wanted to look at him. So they came one by one to meet him, as if he were some black potentate. He was a potentate, the great, very powerful monarch, king is a potentate. So they came as if a monarch is sitting, a king is sitting, and they came to pay their respects one by one in front of this gorilla, that is Npongo. Having previously suffered by keeping Chamle the chimpanzee in the house, I knew from bitter experience that there was nothing like an ape from turning a civilized room into something closely resembling a bomb site in an incredibly short space of time, right? So because the narrator, that is Mr. Dural, was an experienced person. Earlier, he has tried this. He had kept a chimpanzee in his house. His name was Shamle, in his house, and the ruckus he created in his house. Right? Once you have an ape in your house, what will happen? Your room will turn from a very civilized thing, that is with everything kept in its proper space, that will be transformed into a bomb site. Bomb site means, you must have seen a bomb site on the television, right? Everything is scattered, torn, burned, right? Scattered, lying in bits and pieces here and there, everything disorderly in a chaotic state. So that is a bomb site. So very soon, an ape in a room will transform a civilized, a decent room into a bomb site in no time, in an incredibly small space of time. Incredibly means unbelievably small space of time. Means they don't need much time to transform a civilized room into a bomb site, into something which very closely resembles a bomb site. So I watched Nkongo like a hawk. Like a hawk means with a lot of attention. So the narrator, because he had an experience with an ape, and a burnt child dreads the fire. So he was observing Nkongo, behavior of Nkongo like a hawk, means with a lot of attention. Right? He was very vigilant and very alert as far as Nkongo was concerned. When he became bored with lying on the sofa, he decided to make a circuit of the room to examine anything of interest. So after some time, he was tired of lying on the sofa, and Pongo was tired of lying on the sofa, and so he decided to get up from there and take a round. A circuit of the room means to take a round of the entire room, to examine anything of interest, to find out if there is something in the room which will be able to catch his attention and interest. So he walked slowly round like a small black professor in the museum, pausing now to look at the picture, now to stroke an onion. So he got up from the sofa and started walking around very slowly, like a small black professor. You know how the professors and all these intellectual people, how they look at things with a lot of interest, right? And very slowly they move from one object to another. That is the meaning, like a small black professor in the museum. Right? If a professor goes to the museum, what will he do? He will just look at one thing, observe it very carefully, give that particular thing a lot of time, and then move on to the next one. So this is how this baby gorilla was also behaving, right? Pausing now to look at the picture. So he saw a picture, he paused there, looked at the picture, and then looked at the picture with a lot of interest, then kept it back and moved on to the next thing. That is now to stroke an ornament. An ornament must have also been there in the room, and then we stroked that ornament, but doing it so gently that there was never any danger that he would break anything. So this ape, that is Nkongo, was much more civilized in comparison to the one which the narrator had in the past. That is the chimpanzee. So this one was much more civilized. He took care that the ornament doesn't break. Why? Because though he was stroking it, but he was stroking it very gently, right? So that it doesn't break. By doing it so gently that there was never any danger that he would break in. So he touched the things, right? He examined the things which were there in the room in which he was kept, but then he did everything in such a gentle manner, in such a delicate manner, that there was no risk of breaking anything which was kept in the room. After the attitude I was used to with Chamli, I was captivated by Nkongo's beautiful. So, because his past experiences were very bad, right? They were not so good. So, he was captivated. Obviously, the narrator will be captivated with his beautiful manner. See, once you have had a very bad experience about anything in your life, what will happen? In a similar situation, you know you will expect that bad thing again to happen, right? Because now your limit will be decided with that bad experience. But and if you are able to find anything which is less worse than what you have already experienced, or less bad than what you have already experienced, then what will happen? You will be pleased. You will feel good about it. So this is the case with the narrator, because he has already lived for some time with a very uncivilized monkey who only caused destruction, right? Transformed his room into a bomb site. So Nkongo's behavior seems to the narrator very beautiful and very decent. You would have thought that he had been brought up in the house to watch him. Apart from a slight hiatus, when he read the floor, his behaviors were exemplary, and he could not be expected to know that this was not done in the best of cases. Okay, so what happened? The rest of the things were fine. He behaved in a very decent manner, right? The only thing which he didn't do correctly was slight hiatus. Hiatus means when you take a break, right? Or when you stop, or when you break, when there is a break in the activity, or when you pause in an activity, when you stop in an activity for some time. So that is hiatus. So he only stopped from whatever he was doing, whatever activity he was doing. He only took a pause when he had to pee, that is to wet the floor, right? He used to wet all over the place. Wherever he wanted, he used to pee. So then he wet the floor, and he could not be expected to know that this was not done in the best way. Right? So the narrator is kind of taking his side. He says that you cannot expect a baby gorilla, and especially an untrained one, to know that this is something which is not done anywhere you want. Right? He was an untrained monkey, and so he. This is why the narrator has mentioned this fact in the bracket, that a baby gorilla cannot be expected, that this is something which is not done anywhere in the best circles in a decent society, in a civilized society. You're not supposed to pee anywhere you want, right? So he didn't pay much attention to this particular act of Nkongo. His behaviors were exemplary. So besides this thing that he used to pee wherever he wanted, and which was like a pause in his activity, so his behaviors were exemplary. He had the best behavior. Exemplary means when you can give anything as an example, which is the best example of something. So his behaviors were exemplary, so much so that by the time we put him to bed, my mother was doing her best to try to persuade me to keep him in the house permanently. His behaviors were so good, right? He was such a nicely behaved ape that by the end of the day, when by the time this Nkongo was being put to bed, the narrator's mother had already started persuading him that let's keep this baby gorilla in the house permanently. You know, his staying in the guest room was just a temporary arrangement. He will have to go to the zoo once the cage is ready. So, but the mother wanted to persuade the narrator to keep the gorilla in the house. I had, however, learned my lesson with Chamle, and I turned a deaf ear to her pleas. To turn a deaf ear to something? What is the meaning of to turn a deaf ear? Not to pay attention to something. Turn a deaf ear. Turn a deaf ear means to completely ignore, not pay any attention to something, that is turning a deaf ear, right? But because the narrator was an experienced person, he already had a very bad experience with Chamle, and so he turned a deaf ear to all the requests which were made by his mother. Right? The request that he should keep Nkongo in the house permanently were not paid any heed by the narrator. Any problem till here? Somebody read, who will read? Priti, please read.
And Pongo, of course, did not leave the guest room in the condition that he found it. But this was only to be expected. Although his manners were exemplary, he was only a baby and could not be expected automatically to assume civilized behavior because he was living in the house.
Okay.
So the
Wait,
guest room,
wait, wait.
when he left.
Wait. Okay. So, though he was better behaved, though N. Pongo was better behaved in comparison to Chemle, who lived with the narrator in the past, but then he was an ape. So obviously, because of the fact that he was an ape and he has not been taught, he was not trained, so you cannot expect him to adopt all the manners of the civilized society, right? Or how he is supposed to behave in a civilized society when he is living in a house, right? So because he was completely oblivious, unaware of these etiquettes and manners, so you cannot expect him to behave like a decent human being. So though he was not that terrible like Chimle, but again he was an ape, and so the condition of the condition of the guest room was not the same, right? So the narrator is again and again stressing on the point that his manners were exemplary. Exemplary means something which can be set as an example. So, but again, he was an ape, and so he was not used to living in the house. Gorillas are wild animals, right? So you can expect wildness in their behavior unless they are trained ones. Continue. So then the narrator has described the condition of his guest room when Nkongo left his house and he was shifted to the cage in the zoo, right? So then what all traces and what all marks he left, what all marks of remembrance, memories he left in the guest room. Continue, please.
So the guest room, when he left it, bore numerous traces in his presence. On one wall, for instance, was something that resembles a map of Japan drawn by one of the more inebriated ancient mariners. This was nicely executed in the scarlet and was due to the fact that I had thought and Pongo might like some tinned raspberries.
Raspberry.
He had
Okay,
liked them.
wait. So what were the marks? Now I told you the narrator is given a description of the marks or the memories which were left in the room by Nkongo. The first one, four numerous traces. Numerous traces means numerous marks were there of his presence, right? Permanent marks were left in the room of his presence by Nkongo on one wall. So he has given a few examples, right? On one wall, for instance means for example, was something that resembled the map of Japan. So what had he done? He had drawn some strange figure on the wall of that room, on one of the walls of that room, which resembled the map of Japan drawn by one of the most inebriated ancient mariners. Inebriated means intoxicated, drunk, right? So it seemed as if a drunk sailor had drawn that mark on the wall, that map on the wall. It appeared to be similar to the map of Japan. It resembled the map of Japan drawn by a sailor in a drunken state. So this was nicely executed in scarlet. Scarlet means deep red color. So the map was drawn in red color, and from where did Nkongo get that red color? From the raspberries, which were tinned raspberries which were given to him to eat. Why? Because the narrator thought that he might relish them, he might like the taste of the raspberries, so he had once given Nkongo to eat the raspberries which were there in a tin, the canned raspberries he was given to eat, and this is how he used those raspberries to make a map on the wall. See, it doesn't mean that he was actually able to make a map of Japan. Right? It's just a way of saying that he made some strange figure on the wall which resembled the map of Japan. Okay, continue.
He had liked them, and this enthusiasm at this new addition to his diet has resulted in the map of Japan.
So he had
There was
next
also straw.
he had liked those raspberries and this new addition to his diet, this new thing which was included in his diet, right? So he was so excited about it that he couldn't stop himself from making that mark on the wall. He wanted to do something more with that raspberry besides eating them, and so he made that strange figure on the which resembled the map in the wall.
Next to paraffin, I know of no other com- commodity commodity that manages to worm its way in a positively parasitic fashion into every nook and cranny before you are aware of it. For months after Aunt Pongo's sojourn in our guest room, we were apologizing to guests for the floor, which, in spite of hovering, looked like a 16th century Alais house. There was
Ale house.
also the fact that the
They,
ale house,
we, how,
they
if you will read so much, how will I explain? And if I have to read again, what is the use of making you? Okay, this is nicely, this we have done, right? He had liked them and his enthusiasm at this new addition to his diet has resulted in the map of Japan. There was also straw. The next thing, the next trace which he left in the room was of straw. You know what is a straw? Straw is a dried grass, right? Which is normally fed to the animals and all. So it is the yellow colored grass. Next to paraffin, I know of no other commodity that manages to warm its way. Warm its way means, again, this is the idiom of the day, and we have come across one or two more. Okay. So warm its way means, warming one's way means that something which is able to crawl or squeeze itself into the places which are very tight, where it's almost impossible for something to enter. But if a substance has the ability to go into those places also, right, which are very compact and which are very tight, or there is absolutely no space, but if any substance is able to enter that space also, then it is warm its way. So he says that next to paraffin, what is paraffin? Paraffin is a substance which is obtained from petroleum, right? So next to paraffin, the narrator says that after paraffin, if I can think of any commodity which is able to pass itself through closed, tight spaces, it is a straw. And you must have seen, if you have a straw in the house, you will find it all over the place. No matter how properly you try to keep it, how nicely you try to make it stay in one place, but after some time you will see that yellow dried grass like thing all scattered all over the place. So that is what the narrator is trying to say, that after paraffin also it flows a lot, right? And so that is why the narrator says that after paraffin, if I have come across, next to paraffin means one is paraffin, and besides paraffin, if I have come across any other substance which has the ability to make its presence felt everywhere at the closed, tightest spaces also, it is straw. So what he wanted to say, there was straw scattered all over the room, right? In a positively parasitic fashion. Parasitic means positively parasitic fashion. Parasites are plants which you don't grow, and still they force themselves, right, on you. So you don't want them, but still they grow. So this straw was also found all over the room in a parasitic fashion, which was not wanted, very kind of unwanted manner. It was scattered all over the room, into every nook and cranny. Nook and cranny means nook and corner, in every single corner of the room, before you are aware of it. So before you even realize it, this is straw Besides paraffin, the paraffin also has the ability to reach every nook and corner, the tightest, most difficult places. You will find it. You keep paraffin, you will find it all over the place. Similarly, straw also has the ability to make its presence be felt in every nook and corner in a parasitic fashion. In a parasitic fashion means in an unwanted fashion, in an unwanted manner, in every nook and corner before you even realize it, that it is all over the place. Now it has scattered all over the place. For months after Npongo's sojourn in our guest room, we were apologizing to guests for the floor, which in spite of hovering looked like a 16th century building, right? Sojourn means when you stay at a particular place for some time, right? So as a guest, you stay at a place for some time, right? So after Npongo left, after a month passed, when Npongo left, what happened? Still there were these marks present in the guest room, and the narrator and his family, they were apologizing to the guests for the floor, which in spite of hovering, in spite of hovering means in spite of being cleaned again and again, hovering is cleaning with the help of a vacuum cleaner. So in spite of being cleaned several times with the help of the vacuum cleaner, looked like the 16th century alehouse. Alehouses were the places where drinks were served, right? Ale and beer. Ale is a type of an alcoholic drink. So when where ales and beers were served, so those are alehouses, right? So in spite of the fact that they made several attempts to clean the room, but still the floor had marks, had dirty marks, patches, which resembled the 16th century alehouse. They were as dirty as the 16th century alehouse. So they had to apologize to the guests for those marks present in the room. The guests who stayed in their room after Npongo left. There was also the fact that the handle of the door drooped. Another point. See, you need to remember these things. They can ask you in short answer question. In the split questions, these things can be asked. Right? The memories which were left by Npongo in the narrator's guest room. So you have to make a note of these things. There was also another mark which was left by Npongo was there was also the fact that the handle on the door drooped at rather a depressed angle. So the handle of the door, right, the knob of the door, it tilted at a depressed angle. So it was kind of hanging and coming out, drooping down. Since Npongo, after receiving his meal. So how was that done? Because once when Npongo was given his meal, given food to eat, what happened? He attempted to follow me out of the room. So what might have happened? The narrator must have entered the room and given Npongo his meal, but Npongo wanted to come along with the narrator. So the narrator must have left the room and the door was closed. But obviously Npongo doesn't know how to open the door, how to use the knob. So he must have used his force. And obviously gorillas are very powerful animals. They have a lot of strength and a lot of energy. So in an attempt to follow the narrator, to accompany the narrator, because the door was closed when the narrator left. But Npongo wanted to follow the narrator. So he must have used his entire strength to open the door. Right? By pulling the handle, and so the handle was keeping at a strange angle now, in a very depressing fact, right? So that it was tilted kind of. Yes, so Npongo, after receiving his meal, he attempted to follow me out of the room, knowing that the handle by some magical means opened and close the door. So he must have seen the narrator open and close the door several times by using that handle. So he thought that this is the magical thing. This is the magical thing which will open the door. You have to pull it and this will open. And not knowing technically how to operate it, so he just used his strength. But not knowing exactly how to manipulate it, he had merely pulled it downwards with all his strength. So now you can understand what might have happened. As I tried unsuccessfully to bring the handle back into position again, I reflected that Npongo was only about 2 years old and that his strength would increase in proportion to his size. So he was just 2 years old when he did it. Right? Though the narrator, after this was done, he made several attempts to fix that handle, to bring that handle to its original position, but he failed, and so the angle was tilted at that depressed angle. So the handle was tilted at that depressed angle. So, but this made the narrator realize that Npongo is growing now, and the more he will grow in size, the more powerful he will be. Right? The greater strength he will acquire. His strength will grow according to his size. If at the age of 2 he is able to pull the handle like this, then what will happen later? One of the things which particularly interested me about him was his different approach to the problem or a situation. So another interesting thing about Npongo was that he approached a problem, anything which he didn't like or any situation which he didn't like, he had a different kind of approach. Right? He had an approach which was different from the rest of the apes living in the zoo. So now, how was it so? The narrator has explained. If, for example, a baby chimpanzee is used to being brought out of its cage, on being reincarcerated, it will carry on like one of the more loquacious heroines of the Greek tragedy. So, what was the difference? Now he's comparing. To understand how a particular animal or how a particular thing is different, you need to compare it from the others belonging to the same type. So, how was he different from the other chimpanzees? That has been explained by the narrator. So, he's giving an example. If a baby chimpanzee was brought out of a cage, right? See, the animals, they are kept in the zoo, they are brought out for some time, they are made to stay out of their cage, they play, and then they are again sent back to their cages, right? So, how would a baby chimpanzee behave if he was brought out of his cage? On being reincarcerated. Reincarcerated means imprisoned again. Imprisoned means to send back to the cage. So, on being again sent back to the cage, how will a chimpanzee behave? They normally behave like a heroine in a Greek tragedy. Loquacious heroine in a Greek tragedy means they were very talkative and they used to throw a lot of tantrums. They didn't want to go back, right? So that is what the narrator wants to say. Loquacious means in a very talkative manner, tearing its hair. So you must have seen how the heroines in the olden days and in the tragedies, the great tragedies, how they behave. So tearing its hair, rolling with rage on the floor, screaming at the top of its voice, and drumming its heel on every available bit of the woodwork. So this is how a chimp would behave, right? He would just pull his hair, roll on the floor. So these were the tantrums. Screaming at the top of its voice, it would start screaming, drumming its heel. Drumming its heel means stamping his heel on every woodwork. Right? All the wooden objects which are kept there, he used to just stamp his feet on them. Npongo was quite different. So that is what is the meaning of behaving like a heroine in a Greek tragedy. Loquacious means talkative heroine of the Greek tragedy. Right? So these tantrums were thrown by the chimpanzees in the zoo. Npongo was quite arrogant. But the way Npongo behaved was quite different, right, from the chimpanzee. How would he behave? Although deploring it, deploring means hating, disliking something. So although Npongo also disliked being kept in the cage, right? Whenever it was time for him to go back into the cage, he also didn't like it. Nobody wants to be imprisoned or nobody wants to stay in a cage. Even animals don't want. So he also didn't like this idea of going back or being imprisoned again in the cage. But he behaved in a more decent way. He would accept the necessity of being locked up again. So he didn't throw these kind of tantrums. He didn't roll on the floor. He was not screaming. So his reaction was more decent in comparison to the other apes in the zoo. He would accept the necessity, but then he would realize that this is something. So he had accepted this particular fact that he would have to go to the cage, because this was something which was repeated every day. So he knew that this is a kind of a necessity and he will have to go back. So there is no use throwing these tantrums, no use of screaming, no use of stamping your foot, no use of crying, no use of rolling on the floor, because they anyhow will send you back to the cage. Right? So he had understood this fact, and so though he didn't relish it, though he didn't like it, but still he behaved in a more decent manner in comparison to the chimpanzees. He would try his best to divert. See, he behaved in an intelligent manner. He would try his best to divert you from this course of action, right? So he didn't scream and shout and stamp. He just tried to do something so that your attention is diverted from this important point that he's supposed to be locked by now, that he's supposed to be sent back to the cage. So he would do different things to distract you from doing your job, right? You won't react in a very violent manner, in a very aggressive manner. Instead, he would devise tricks to distract you, to divert your attention from the course of action, from this course of action of sending him back to the cage. But when he realized that it has become inevitable means something which cannot be avoided, right? So, but then he finally understood that now it is inevitable. Now you cannot stop the person from imprisoning you in the cage. He would submit with good grace. Then he would submit with good grace means that he would surrender, and very quietly he will go into the cage, right? His only protest would be a couple of sharp and feverish screams as he saw you disappear. So the only reaction would be that he would scream, but not so loudly like the chimpanzees, right? So only just to show his irritation, just to show his disgust, he would scream for some time. Then when he would see you go away, right? After locking him in the cage, obviously the person is not going to stay there. He will disappear. So when he saw the person disappear, he would just give a few screams of irritation and disgust. That is the only thing which he would do. Whereas the average chimpanzee of his age and with his background would have gone on having hysterics for a considerable lecture time. Whereas the chimpanzees, they would scream, shout, and react in a very violent manner, right? Hysterics means screaming and crying, a very violent, a very emotional, violent kind of reaction. When you become hysterical, being hysterical means when you don't have any control over your emotions, right? It's a state of uncontrolled emotion. So while a chimpanzee, what would a chimpanzee do? He would go on behaving in a very emotional manner for a considerable length of time. Means the chimpanzee would go on crying, screaming, right, for a long period of time. Owing to his attractive appearance and disposition, his good manners, and his very well-developed sense of humor, and Pongo was in a very short space of time the darling. So, because of his behavior, because of his wonderful appearance, you know, we have been told earlier that he was a very healthy ape, right? He had a good glossy skin. He had a good physique. He didn't have an ounce of extra flesh, right? Extra fat hanging from his body, right? He had a very muscular body. So, and Pongo, because he was attractive to look at, and then he had a wonderful sense of humor, right? He was kind of a naughty ape, so he attracted the attention, very active, agile ape, and so he attracted the attention of people in the zoo, and in a very short period of time, he became the darling of the zoo. Any problem, Tillian? Every fine afternoon, he was brought out onto the lawn in front of the yew hedge. So yew is a type of a tree, right? It has fruits like berries. Most of them are poisonous. Right? It has most of these yew berries they are not eaten because they are poisonous. So there was a yew hedge, and there he would show off to his admirers. So because he was living in a zoo, so there would be visitors, right? People coming to the zoo to look at the animal, and there he would show off to his admirers, either lolling in the grass or lolling in the grass with a bored expression on his face, or with a wicked gleam in his eyes. So he used to give these strange expressions with a gleam in his eyes, with a shine in his eyes, or he would just roll on the grass. So the visitors who came to the zoo, he would show this kind of behavior to those people, working out how he could pose for his photograph to be taken by some earnest visitor, and then rush forward at the crucial moment, grasp the unfortunate person's leg, and push it from under him. A task that gave him immense amusement and generally resulted in the visitor sustaining a slipped disc and having an excellent picture of the completely empty section of the lawn. Or he would either roll on the grass, or he would look at them with a strange expression in the eyes, right, with a shine in his eyes. Or another very interesting behavior was, I told you that he was a very naughty, very active kind of an ape. So, or what he would do, he would give the impression to the visitor that he is posing for a photograph, because the visitors came to the zoo and they took pictures of the animal. So he would stand in such a manner that he is posing for the photograph, right? And he wants the visitor to take a photograph. And the moment the visitor was about to click the picture, what he would do, he would just rush from there, pull the leg of the visitor or the person who was taking the photograph. And this act he found very amusing. He enjoyed doing it. See, he was an ape. He didn't have any idea that he is actually hurting the visitor, right? He was only interested in his amusement and in entertaining himself. So this is how he entertained himself. The moment the visitor was about to click the picture, right, he would stand in such a fashion that he is ready, he is posing for the visitor to take a picture. And the moment the visitor was about to click the picture, what he would do, he would just rush and pull the leg of the visitor from under him. And as far as Nkongo was concerned, he was very amused. After doing it, he found it really funny. But as far as the visitor was concerned, mostly it resulted in a slip disc. Obviously, if the visitor will fall, he will have a slip disc, or he ended up injuring his back and spine, and having an excellent picture. And because he had almost clicked it, so what would be the result? The picture of an empty lawn, because Nkongo was nowhere to be found in the picture. So the moment the picture was clicked, he just disappeared and pulled the visitor's leg. So the picture, what came in the picture? An empty section of the lawn, right? And he found it very amusing and interesting. I think we should stop here and we'll continue further at the next time. Thank you.